Chapel. It is good to have you here tonight as our ushers are making their way forward. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, tonight we're so grateful that we have another opportunity to worship you. Help us to worship you in spirit and in truth. Help us, Father, to always be sensitive to your leadership and help us to give you honor and glory. For it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
That anybody could not understand what a mighty God we serve. When they look around and look at themselves and how intricately the human body works, how the world works together, it just amazes me. So, this is nothing but a praise to the Maker, the potter's hands. He built me, and I am a vessel for him to fill. And so are you. So if you would, please stand and join us in singing the Potter's Hand. I start this out, but everybody can sing with me.
All of my days
It is wonderful to sing about the potter's hands, but it's hard to be the clay in the potter's hands at times. Amen? It really is. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to the Old Testament, to Genesis chapter 41. We're going to pick up with our study of Joseph. And we may finish up Wednesday, or we may go on into next Sunday with it. I'm not quite sure yet where the Lord leads with that. But we see a lot with Joseph's life. Joseph understood what it was to be in the lowest of lows, and then to be on the very mountaintop of heights. And as Christians at times, I think we can relate to some of Joseph's, not necessarily his experiences, but maybe his emotions. Maybe his wondering about what in the world have I done, or how have I gotten in this situation. It's kind of like how we relate a lot to Peter in the New Testament. Peter was always sticking his foot in his mouth. And, Lord, I'll never forsake you. I'll be right there with you no matter what. And then next minute, Peter's off doing his own thing. And so I think Joseph is a good one for us as far as a character out of the Bible for us to relate to. A lot of times Joseph is used as an illustration, more as a figure pointing toward Christ. And I believe when people do that, it's not necessarily saying that he is a Christ or that he's perfect or anything like that. They're just relating what he went through in his life as far as persecution, people turning on him, and, all the craziness that he... Hang on. Got to sneeze. Well, I didn't know how to say that. Well, it's gone. It might just sneak out here in a minute. So. It might wait. Well, if that's what it takes to wake Nancy Green up, amen. So anyway, we all know Joseph. We know the story how he was the favorite child. We know that as his brothers were jealous, they got mad at him. And then they threw him in a pit. Then they sold him off to a bunch of merchants as a slave. And then those merchants got into Egypt, and then they sold him off on the slave auction. Potiphar was why Joseph was in Potiphar's house, and he began to take care of the things and be faithful. And that's a very important lesson, I believe, for us to learn. Joseph just didn't happen to start taking care of the whole household of Potiphar. He was very faithful, I believe, in the small things. And then as he got enlarged and blessed him, then he, became more and more lenient as far as how God was using him. But we've got to be faithful in the small things. And that's what leads to being faithful, I believe, in the big things in life. But yet here we see that Joseph was promoted in Potiphar's life and in his household. And then all of a sudden we talked about Wednesday night, and I alluded to it this morning, Potiphar's wife, she thought he was a hunk of man. All right? She loved him. And she wanted to have relations, I guess we could say, with Joseph. And Joseph, time and time again, continued to say no. No. Matter of fact, the last thing we see with him and her, he ran away. And then we see that she told her husband, Potiphar, which he's not really the one to be messing around with either. And so anybody with common sense would know that Joseph loved this guy that he was working for and done his best for him. The chief executioner is really not somebody you're going to have an affair on with his spouse. That's not just going to happen. But yet, she spun the tale. Then we find Joseph in prison. Once again, and during this time in prison, God was still with him, and God blessed him. And during that time, Pharaoh had a couple of servants, and we talked about them this morning, the butler and the baker. And the butler and the baker, we're not really sure what got them in trouble, but they were having some dreams, and they were sad, and they couldn't quite understand, so Joseph was there, and God just gave him the answer to what what they needed. Basically, the butler was going to live after 3 days, and in 3 days' time, the baker was going to be hung. And during that time, we talked about Joseph getting with the butler and saying, listen, whenever you get out, you need to do this. Here's my name, my number, my cell number, my email address, my GPS location. when you get out, talk to Pharaoh and have him come get me. And as I said this morning, just reading that casually, we don't think a lot about it. But when we try to enact our will on something, sometimes we're trusting in our process or others more so than we're trusting in God. And I'm not going to say we've never done it. All of us here are guilty of that. And we can't blame Joseph for that. But here we see, he became maybe a little doubtful. Well, the butler leaves, the baker got hung, the butler forgot all about Joseph. Forgot about it. Remember we talked about that this morning, ladies? How many times have you told your husband something and he's forgot it all? Just not even that. Don't even register. It's like you're talking and it don't even stop. It just goes. Now I know that probably doesn't happen to any of the husbands here. Does it, men? No. We're more sensitive and caring. Yeah, moving right along. But yet, we see Joseph. Can you imagine as he's sitting there? So tonight, let's look at a couple of things. First of all, in verse 1, and it came to pass at the end of 2 full years. And I'm not going to get into a long list of this because we dealt with it this morning. But there's times in our lives where we will have a delay, where God pushes pause, and life continues on, but it's as if we don't quite understand. Now, I don't know about you, but I would have had a hard time for two years staying down there thinking, where in the world is the butler and Pharaoh? Where in the world, God, I'm innocent, but yet here I am paying a price that's so steep, but yet I didn't do anything. But here we see that whenever we go through the delays in life, whenever it calls for patience, when it calls during those hard times that maybe we don't quite understand, or it's not working out in life the way we planned, there's a couple of things that God can teach us. One of them is patience. How many of us have ever asked God for patience? Okay, be careful with that because you will get it. Okay? Now we know that patience and understanding and all those things come whenever we are spiritually growing. But I think one of the things that Joseph learned while he was in this 2-year period, 2 years. Now, can you imagine the emotional swing from packing up what he had to saying, guys, it's good to know you. I'm out of here. The butler's not going to let me down. I'm just waiting. And waiting. 2 years he's been waiting. I believe he learns patience, but also dependence. Who is more important? Who do you trust in? Do you trust the butler? Or do you trust God? You see, the problem with us in our Christian lives, many times we trust the butler more than we do God. Do we not? We've all been there. We try to put in a good word for us. But sometimes it's awful easy to lose that focus in times of delay. Now let's look at verse 1. At the end it says, we're going to see the dreams that Pharaoh had. It says that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up and them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed a second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, and rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after him, and the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And you're saying, what in the world is that dream about? Come back Wednesday night and we'll deal with that. What I want us to look at is in verse 8. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit, speaking of Pharaoh, was troubled. Underline that phrase, troubled, or his spirit was troubled. That carries the idea of being disturbed or distressed. Now, Pharaoh was it. I mean, he was at the top of the order. And here he was, had something in his life that yet scared him. and distressed him. Now, I'm not talking about depressed. I'm talking about the emotional distress of what is going on. I don't understand this, and this scares me. Have you ever had to face something in life that scared you? That maybe you didn't quite understand, or maybe you never encountered before? But yet here we can kind of relate a little bit. We see that Pharaoh was troubled. Well, what did Pharaoh do? He had a little common sense right here. Look in verse 8. I'm not saying it was right, but he at least began the trek, and he went, and Pharaoh told them his dream, talking about, in verse 8, and all the wise men, and there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. The wise men was kind of like his spiritual counsel. These were the guys he called them. Now, we're not talking spiritual as in followers of God. They were more religious, okay? And they had all kinds of different ways of thinking and religious ideas and religious thoughts. And basically, what they done, and I think it was just of the devil, but, Pharaoh went to them and said, hey, what do these dreams mean? And I cannot believe, because their job was to interpret and to give him religious counsel, and they had nothing to say. You would have thought they would at least made something up, because this is Pharaoh and he wants an answer. They just sat there and looked at each other and said, hey, we don't have any idea. You would have thought that he would have fired them and got some new ones. But these dreams disturbed him, I think, more than anything had disturbed him in a long time. Now look in verse 9. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. And Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew servant, to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was me, must he restored into mine office, and him he hanged. And then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came unto Pharaoh. Over 2 years had took place, a long delay according to Joseph. But we see that Pharaoh had a dream, and those dreams disturbed him. And to me, a lot of times, if Joseph, because God sees the big picture, we don't see the big picture of our life. God sees the big picture. He has clarity. We don't. We have cloudiness, okay? We have thunderstorms. We have rain. We might see a little sunshine from time to time when we look at our life. But God sees the clear picture of what our lives are meant to be and what He desires for us to be doing. And yet it had to be timing. If Joseph would have went up to the head guy and said, listen, I need to go talk to Pharaoh, they would have laughed at him. Let's say if Joseph would have broke out of prison. Let's say he'd have broke out of prison, because remember, everything he was doing, he was blessed. So they continued to give him honor and, responsibilities. I'm sure, hey, what if he just walked out? Went up and knocked on Pharaoh's door. Hey, Mr. Pharaoh, I'm Joseph. I need to talk to you, and I need to talk to you now. Yeah. Joseph probably would have ended up like the baker that we talked about this morning, hanging. Has to do with God's timing. That teaches me that there's hope. Because when God begins to place things in His timing, things will begin to move in our lives. We just have to trust Him with that. It's kind of like the baker just had one of those, oh my goodness, moments. It's like after 2 years, ding, 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 ding. I think those 2 years, God was still developing Joseph. That's just my opinion. Now, if I'd have been in Joseph's shoes, I would have said the development process had been done a long time before that. I want out now. But here we see, I like one old preacher, he called it help from the hoosgow. Help from the hoosgow. Guys, y'all know what a hoosh gal is? You don't know what the hoosh gal is? Has your mom or daddy ever been to the hoosh gal? You don't even know what the hoosh gal is? Does somebody know what the hoosh gal is? Huh? Jail? Huh? Well, I was quoting the preacher. I don't know. He said help from the hoosh gal. Anyway, here we see Joseph. The timing's right. You know what Joseph could have done? Joseph could have barged out of there and just as been as mad and angry because he had chewed on that, thought about it, mulled it over, blamed everybody for 2 years. He could have went looking for that butler. Went looking. But what did the Bible say he done? He shaved himself, he changed his raiment, and he came into favor. He had a demonstration of respect. He had a demonstration of accountability for God doing something here. And this should teach us, whether you like presidents, whether you like, when I was in seminary or college, I had professors that I agreed with from a theological standpoint. I had some, I was so far in our beliefs, we were polar opposites. But I respected them in the class and out of class because of who they were and the position they had. And I got along great with them. Here we see Joseph, cleaned up, ready, respectful. But I believe at any other time in Pharaoh's life, he probably would have had Joseph killed if Joseph would have approached him on his own. But he asked for Joseph to be delivered to him. That's something only God can do. That's something only a big God can do. So remember, when you're going through those trials in life and it don't seem like it's working out and it seems like there is no way, no way, and you're trying your best with the Lord's help and it's still feel like you're going in circles, sometimes we need to just wait. Instead of trying to work it out and figure it out on our own, allow God to take care of the process. Because God's a lot better at taking care of the process than we are. That doesn't mean we stop being spiritual, we stop growing, but it does mean we trust in Him more. Because let's be honest, sometimes the way we live our lives, it demonstrates that we trust in ourselves more than maybe we trust God. Tonight, here's how we're going to close. We're just going to bow our heads right where you're at. What are some areas in your life that you're struggling with? What are some areas that you're holding on to? What are some areas that you're just fighting mad about? Joseph had every right to be mad. Abandoned. People promised, I'll take care of you, and then they forget it. 2 long years when he thought he was going to get out. But he let it all go. And God still worked in his life. Can that be said about you? Can that be said about you to where you're not paralyzed by everything that's going on in your life? That you've learned to trust God even more. That you learn to walk daily with Him. That you're able to, like Joseph said earlier a few chapters before, here am I. I'll do that. When he's talking to his father. Tonight, what are some areas that you struggle with? What are areas that you need God to really help you with? Are you willing to let Him help? Are you willing to really trust Him? Trust Him more than just today and tomorrow, but trust the next day and the day after and the month after and the year after. Father, tonight, just like Joseph, we may not understand everything that takes place in our life. We may not ever understand every turn and every direction. But God, we do come and help us to remember. Help us to realize it's not about us, Father, it's all about you. Father, teach us through Joseph's life as an example of how to be faithful to you, to understand your timing. Father, thank you. Help us always to have a patient ear with you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. Thank you all for being here tonight. Real quick, senior duck trip, sign up in the back. I think we've probably got around 20 or so signed up. Remember, they don't take check cards or credit cards. They take cash. So either take cash or, like I said, sit next to somebody that's got a bunch of money. So please sign up for that. Cottage prayer group's coming up. Here in a few weeks, we'll have more information about that next week. And as soon as we get done tonight, nominating committee. So thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you Wednesday night. Everybody put a smile on your face and get to hugging as you walk out.